I didn't actually know that I wanted to be a writer until I was probably in my early 30s. So I had already had a bit of life experience before that, just by the nature of doing what I thought I wanted to do. And then one day I got addicted to writing, and it's been storytelling ever since.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. Hey everybody, have you ever wondered about the true nature of the human soul? What happens when the very essence of who we are is shattered, split in two? Well, on today's podcast, we are going to be chatting with a very special guest, Brent Lindstrom, author of the riveting metaphysical thriller, One for the Money, Two for the Soul. Brent's own life has been a journey of adventure, faith, and following his dreams, and today he's here to share how these experiences have shaped the stories he tells. So, let's get ready to ponder the mysteries of the soul and the power of the human spirit. Your story starts now. Welcome to the show, Brent.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to visit with you and share with your audience what my books are all about and some of my journey too. So, what do you got for me?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. First off, you just have to tell me a little bit about this, very diverse career and life experiences. I mean, you went from being a pilot to a scuba diver to an outdoorsman, a contractor, a businessman, a missionary, and a father and a husband and a writer. So it's a lot. Maybe it's kind of a lot to wrap into one package. But very briefly, how did that all come to be, and ultimately, what led you into the path of writing based on all those experiences?
Okay, so first off, I think that having a lot of experiences in your life is very fundamental to being able to tell stories, because if you haven't lived, how can you share anything? I mean, I love that I've been able to have a long journey before I actually got into the writing. If I would have started out at this early on, I think I might have struggled a lot more with it. But yeah, it's been a long journey, and I didn't actually know that I wanted to be a writer until I was probably in my early 30s. So I had already had a bit of life experience before that, just by the nature of doing what I thought I wanted to do. And then one day I got addicted to writing, and it's been storytelling ever since.
Understood. Yeah, I guess that's kind of how some things go. Some people know they want to be a writer, like from the very minute they're born, right? From their children. But sometimes it just kind of comes to you from all those different experiences, like you kind of talked about. And you are absolutely right. Your experiences are what drives the book at the end of the day, right? What you know, that's the age-old quote, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, kind of going into the one for the money, two for the soul. I guess I'm curious to know, and just speaking a little bit about yourself, you are a father, and I know there's a lot of parent and child relationships that we see in this book, and especially kind of explored in the different themes between there. So, would you say that that experience in particular shaped one for the money, two for the soul in particular?
Only in a very indirect way, because I
Indirectly.
didn't write any of my experiences into this,
Okay.
but I did write some of the innocence into it. So if you've had children, you know that for those first few years, they are completely innocent. They are completely trusting, or at least mine were. Maybe yours weren't. Maybe yours were little devils and gremlins, but mine were just the biggest angels. And so when I thought of my main character, Winnie, I, I did look to my own daughter in some respects there, because growing up, she just had such purity about her. And I wanted to display a character whose soul gets stolen from her. This is a book about human trafficking, basically, except rather than trafficking actual bodies, they're stealing people's spirits and transplanting those into genetically pre-aged clones. And in this book, that girl's spirit gets stolen from her, but it's bungled and
Mm.
her spirit gets split. So growing up, she was just going to have such purity and innocence growing up, while the other boy, he would be so completely opposite of her. And we're going to see both their stories in that book. But yeah, I would say that just seeing that kind of way that young children are made me want to write a story about a kid who never loses that in a way.
Understood. And thank you for giving us an overview of that book. I do realize I kind of dove right into the themes without
No, it's
saying, okay,
good.
what is the book about? Right? I guess I was just kind of, excited. I mean, the concept of two souls or spirits being split in half, I mean, that's very intriguing. It's something that a lot of people would usually think about. So, I mean, that being said, was there something in particular that inspired that idea of like, a soul inhabiting two bodies and the challenges it would create? Did anything in particular inspire you to create this vision?
Not exactly. I can't actually pinpoint anything in there. It was more of a brainstorm session, like, what if?
Mm.
Okay, let's roll with that. And then what if this? And let's roll with that. And that's usually how I go. A lot of my stories I tell, I'll come up with an idea, and the idea can be from anywhere, but often the idea is very vague and singular in level, and so it takes a little bit of fleshing out to actually come up with the story. I am an outliner, not a pantser, and so I do try to dissect my stories before I actually write them, but I wouldn't say that this one actually had uh, any special motivation on how I treated that other than it just sounded fun.
Well, you know what? We just talked a bunch about your outlining process and where the ideas came from, but it's not just as straightforward as you must think. You have a lot of imagery and metaphors like mermaids and water and all of this. So was that intentional, or was that also something that just kind of came as you were planning it out, all this imagery and motifs?
Um, Mostly that was just me trying to get in the head of the young character. I wouldn't say that there was any initial motivation for that. It was just how would I think if I was that character? I love character-driven stories, and this is very much a character-driven story, a multiple character-driven story. And so, yeah, I'd say most of it just came through the actual writing and discovering who she was.
Understood. Well, hey, that's the best way to do it, right? Once you start getting immersed in the character and get really into their head, that's when those images and themes start popping up. And it's even more compelling when it helps to drive the story itself. But maybe this is a great opportunity for us to take a look at the cover of the book. It's a beautiful design, and I know you have a copy with you today for us to admire. Yeah, check it out, everybody. There you go. Two for the soul, one for the money, two for the soul. Tell us about that artwork. Did you create it yourself?
No, so I have a neighbor who does some cover art for books. At least I did. I've since moved away from there. His name is Wes Wheeler. He's a terrific artist, and he's got a lot of good things that he's done art wise. But yeah, I reached out to him and told him what I was doing. He said, "Hey, I'm doing more covers now. Can I do your cover for you?" And so I said, yeah. And so we started down that process, and he's the one that I did that with.
Understood. Yeah, well, I think it's always great to have those partnerships, right? Especially when they're right around the on their side of the yard, I guess, if it's your neighbor in that case, or
Yeah,
anything.
if he doesn't perform, I can go knock on his door and say, "Hey, where's my book?"
Or even more so, like he opens the window and he's like, "What do you think of this one, man?" And then you're just like, "Thumbs up, like that's good." Anyway, so I'm glad that kind of worked out that way. And it's I always tell people it's writing is a collaborative process. Sometimes you need someone on your side to help you make the cover art or give it another beta read or an editing round of edits, whatever it might be.
Well, this one
Um,
had a lot of, editors helping me on it because This is probably my first book where I actually wrote it under my name. All my others I wrote under a different name because my craft wasn't good enough, I thought, to put my name on it. But this one, the craft had leveled up, and I said, you know what? It's time to ditch the trunk novels and start writing my novels. And so yeah, like I had best-selling author Dave Wolverton, David Farland, maybe you've heard of him. He does some editing, so he helped me on one of the earlier drafts on it, and then I had some other editors that I hired. I can't remember their names right off the top of my head, but after I'd gone through several iterations of that, they came in and helped me on some more iterations, and so yeah, I love leaning on professional editors. They make a huge difference, and every time I use one, I end up upping my own craft because they aren't just editors. They're not just helping you get your book polished. They're also teachers, whether they know it or not.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, as an editor myself, I absolutely see what you mean by that. It's a matter of just helping you elevate your writing to the best it could possibly be, and making sure that the message is well received, that everything's clear, and even there's like little things you wouldn't think of before. So it's great to know that you had that team by your side. A lot of them, which is spectacular. Some people think I don't even need an editor, but obviously we all do. Second pair of eyes doesn't hurt.
I totally agree. I think anyone who thinks that they can just edit their book on their own is misinforming themselves. They need to step outside and get another set of eyes on it.
Absolutely. And, one thing you did mention is that you actually improve your craft with each novel. I think that's something you said before our interviews, actually. So I'm
Right.
sure that the editors help you do that as well. But tell me a little bit about that. How has your writing practices progressed throughout the course of all your different books? And perhaps it's
Oh.
also a good time to shine a light on some of those other ones if you want to talk about them too.
I don't know if I want to let y'all read them. I
Oh,
mean, you can if you want, as long as you understand that my craft is higher now than it was back then. But I used to publish under the name BC Crow. And so my first novel was called The Nephilim Device. And it was a three-book series, Nephilim Device, Nephilim Effect, Nephilim Conspiracy. And it was kind of a thriller. It was one where I put myself into the book. It was also one um, where I was very formulaic in how I wanted to do it. I hadn't read any books on how to write books at that time. I hadn't really researched any of the craft that goes into writing books. I just thought, you know what? I'm going to jump into this and do my best that I can do at writing a book. I mean, I've read a lot of books, and I thought I can write a better book than a lot of the books I've seen out there. So I thought. So that's what I did. I said, what would be marketable? What would be a good story? And I just tried to be as scientific about it as I could. And then I got busy writing, and that's when I actually got addicted to it because as I was writing it, the stories came alive for me. And frankly, I just once I got addicted to it, I said, I need to do this. I need to find a way to become a full-time writer. And so at that point, I put together my own 10-year plan to one, become financially independent because I didn't want to be a starving artist. Two, to up my craft so that I could actually write something that a lot of people would want to read. And then finally, it was just putting in the time, saving up the money, investing, doing everything I needed to get to that point, and
right.
that's where I am today. I've been now 1 year as a full-time writer, and I mean the whole 10 years leading up to that, I was still writing all the time and still working on my craft, but it took a little while before I felt like the craft was at a good level and the financial end was stable enough that I could actually do that.
Absolutely. But hey, I mean, you're living the dream now, you even though it took some time, you got to where you had to be. And now everybody listening today is probably thinking, okay, like that's where I want to be, So I guess it's a matter of those small steps, it sounds like, and kind of just getting yourself immersed in the world of whatever it is you're writing about. I feel like that's kind of a theme for what I've been learning today on the conversation is that your best writing comes from when you get yourself really involved in the world, is kind of what I'm gathering here. I'm guessing that's why you have a notebook full of story ideas. So that must be really cool to kind of draw from. Do you have
Yeah,
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. This notebook.
Well, it's nothing special. I mean, as a creative,
Of
I
course,
mean,
it's special. It's your ideas.
I don't know any other people's writing process, but that's mine. Is I will come up with ideas all the time. Maybe it's something inspired by a dream. Maybe it's something inspired by something I saw walking down the street. But I know that if I don't write that idea down, then it's not gonna stick around in my memory. So I have to write everything down. I keep that notebook, and I'll go through it. Every time I need to start a new story, and I'll just read through it and say, okay. I don't want to tell that story today. That sounded cool at the time, but doesn't really make sense now. Or, oh, here's a story. I think I can run with that one. And that's basically my process of how I come up with my story ideas is just keep writing down the ideas that do come to me throughout the days and things, and then I never run out of creative ideas. And I write a lot. I write I mean, maybe not all day long because I also am trying to become an indie filmmaker, and so I devote half of my days to filmmaking. But my first half of the day every day is nothing but writing.
Understood. Well, that's something, right? The more practice you get, the better you become at it. But I mean, you kind of just dropped a bomb on us just now. You're becoming an indie filmmaker, which I guess is kind of what's inspiring the film reels behind your head right now,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
decoration. So yeah, if you don't mind me asking, my next question was going to be kind of what's next on the agenda for you now that you have this book out and published in the world. So I guess that's one thing that we could be looking forward to is some more of these films. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, so I mean right now I'm doing short films. I have a YouTube channel. It's Light Minded Arts, whatever channel. So you go look for Light Minded Arts, you'll find it. Um but I do a little bit of practice skits, short films and different things there, just kind of working on that while I'm building a film studio. And I'm also, so part of my day writing books, it's not just books, I'm also writing screenplays. And as soon as I get my film studio built, which is in the permitting process right now, then I will also have scripts ready to go that I can start filming these movies with. And yeah, I mean, and not every book I write is going to be made for the screen, and some of the things I put on the screen won't ever see it in a book because sometimes they don't always translate. But yeah, that's the idea is that I can be a writer and filmmaker, and I just love storytelling, whether it's written, visual, oral. Storytelling is how humans communicate, and I love fiction story. So I guess I love lying, I guess. But yeah, I love doing this. It's a passion of mine and I want to keep doing it.
Of course. Yeah. Well, on that topic then, a lot of people say that art art in general kind of overlaps a lot, right? You have like, script writing and book writing, for example. So tell us a little bit about like what are some of the similarities and differences you notice between film and writing or your script writing and
Yeah.
novel writing? I'm sure you've kind of drawn on both experiences throughout your
Yeah,
endeavors.
yeah, I have. Um so one of the biggest differences is that a screenplay is shorter, a lot shorter than my novels. You're trying to fit these in about an hour and a half, which when you're actually writing it down on a page is about 90 pages. But even then, in a book, you fill the whole page. In a screenplay, the script it has its formatting, which basically means you only fill about half the page, maybe even less than that. And so there's a lot less that goes into it, but you also have to be kind of cognizant of how these stories, the different story beats that you hit. Like in a book, you can actually dive into some rabbit holes in a book and still keep the pacing feeling okay. And I mean, you still need to be careful, but in a screenplay, you don't have any margin of error. Every second counts. And if somebody is watching a movie and they run into a 5 minute dead spot just because the pacing isn't right,
Right.
they'll just turn it off and you're done. And your your books, they might cost you a bit of money to write a book, but a screenplay to produce a screenplay, I mean, you're likely spending over $100,000 on a movie sometimes a couple $1 million on an independent movie even. And so there is a little bit of differences in there. And I don't know, maybe you have maybe you can ask a specific question. Is there anything specifically that you're curious about on the difference on the two?
Yeah, well, how about just like in terms of like dialogue, for example? I mean, obviously it's so different between novels and of course, for example, if you're thinking of the mindset of our main character and in this book, that the child's perspective versus the perspective of somebody on a script, it's got to be a lot different because you in terms of even formatting, right? In terms of,
Yeah.
for example, dialogue breaks, actions happening in a book versus in a script, it's completely different. So, is there a different process between the two?
Yeah, a little bit. So, and I got two thoughts on this, maybe three. So, um, when you're writing a book, you can get into a character's head. You can, I mean, depending on the perspective you're using, you can be very descriptive and help somebody just truly imagine what's actually happening there. But and you might take a whole page to describe something that in a script you have to say in one sentence. In a screenplay, you are basically creating a set of blueprints, and you're giving these blueprints to the director, and you need it as tight as you can get it, and then the director has to take that and use his imagination to run with it from there. And so the level of description is definitely different in the two. Also, in a screenplay, you are limited to writing in the present tense. So when you're writing description, you're writing something like, I'll just use the character in my book. Winnie runs to the pond. Okay. In a
Mhm.
book, I might have said Winnie ran to the pond, and I might throw in some extra flowery language about how she
Mhm.
skipped over a rose bush and how she did this or that along as she was skipping to the pond, whatever. But in the screenplay, it's very succinct, and it's right now in the moment. There's nothing that you described that happened in the past because you're watching it on a screen in this moment.
I like the distinction. It's not something I would have thought about. You know, I'm a ghostwriter and an editor, but it's a little bit of a different realm, but very overlapping in terms of film and writing as well. So I thank you for sharing that with us, especially in terms of like past tense versus future tense. And a lot of people get that confused, you know, and especially when you're getting into the writing world, it's an important distinction to make. So yeah, I mean, this has been great to hear about, you know, your process of creating the book and then kind of transitioning into another endeavor. Um, I guess it's sort of one of our, as we begin to wrap up this conversation, I'm curious to know, just to circle back to the book in question today, one for the money, two for the soul. What would you say is a main message that you'd like the audience to get across once they pick it up after this episode? You know, what's one thing that you hope they take away from them after they finish reading one for the money, two for the soul?
One thing that I would love for them to do is not to actually pay for it. If you go to my
Oh.
website, yeah, if you go to my website and fill out my contact form there and mention this podcast, I will send you a free ebook version of it.
Well,
Okay.
there we go.
I mean, I want you to read it. I want you to know who I am. I'm going to write plenty of books, okay? So, I just want you to give me a chance. And you know what? If you like it, I want you to just leave a review because that's how I get noticed. And so, yeah, that's what I would leave with them. So, www.lightmindedarts.com, and you can have it for free.
Hey, well, there we go. I love that you do that. You know, that way everyone could just kind of get immersed in the world and learn what it's all about without even having to, you know, pull out their wallets. And so there you have it, guys. We're gonna put the link in the description box of this podcast today. So click on over and get in the know. As we're on that topic, then, is that the best website for people to find you? Are there any other links that we should be heading to stay in touch?
You know, my website, lightmindedarts.com, is great. You can follow me on Facebook at Lightminded Arts, or you can check out my YouTube channel and see some of the visual things I'm doing there also. That's just Lightminded Arts on YouTube.
Understood. Okay, well, there you have it, guys. We're going to put that in the description box of this podcast so you can click over and get in touch. And as a final note, as we conclude today's episode, what piece of writing advice can people take with them after today? I mean, for me, I think I've learned most that if you want to create a immersive world just like Brent here, what you have to do is just get yourself a topic that you're passionate about and really just like build the world around you is kind of what I'm getting from one for the one for the money, two for the soul. But what about you? What would you say is the most important piece of writing advice that people should hold on to?
Well, I don't know if it's writing advice, but it's my advice. And
Okay.
my advice, because I'm a money guy. I
Mhm.
studied finance stuff. My piece of advice would be to find a way to become financially independent so that you can focus on your writing. That's what I teach. That's what I preach. I mean, that's what I live.
Understood. I love that. And, clearly here you are, you're living the dream. You're able to accomplish so much. Now you're dabbling into film too. So, and you're able to just have that foundation, that springboard. So yeah, guys, I mean, figure out what's best for you so that you can have that safety net so you can follow your own dreams. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you and get to know you.
All right. Thank you. It's been great talking to you.
Of course, and to our audience today, I think we've learned a ton from today's conversation. So again, click on over, get connected with Brent, and in the meantime, if his story inspires you, one, set up that safety net like we talked about, and two, just get started writing. Even if you're, still working or have other responsibilities, nothing stopping you from jotting a few notes down, starting that notebook, just like Brent taught us about. And yeah, that's how the magic works. So keep writing, keep leading, and keep inspiring. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.